It's martini time. I don't know, I get excited coming up to this, and I don't know whether it's meeting with you or getting the martini. So let's start with a gong. I hit it with the wrong one. It's supposed to be a cushion. That is a, as you can see, I'm in my foyer where I have this piece of furniture here with a lot of my memorabilia on it, and I got it all located in one spot instead of being all over the place. So I've got everybody's here. Buddha's here, Jesus, Virgin Mary, Kuan Yin, Shiva, Ganesh, all my little instruments, and rosaries and mala beads, and even here my happy hour frog. So we're all here together, and I've been realizing that what's been unfolding with my talks in the morning and in the evening of late, the theme is unfolding to me, is that I've been talking about atonement with the Father. And that means atonement, and the Father is kind of like a metaphor for the world. So we're talking atonement with the Father means atonement with the world, being at peace with the world, which means being at peace with yourself, because you are the world and the world is you. So when you're at peace with yourself, atonement with yourself, you're at one with the world and you're at one with the Father. And even Jesus talked about that when he said, the Father and I are one. That means atonement. But we tend to compartmentalize these things into, well, Jesus did that and it's about the Bible and all that. Or it's about my biological father and he was a son of a bitch. So you can't, we get blocked in the unfolding and the understanding of this quest by compartmentalizing it and defining it. So we have to loosen it up a little bit and have to blow it open a little bit and expand it, you see, which is called understanding. And even Joseph Campbell, when he talked about the hero's journey, the hero with 1,000 faces, where he mapped the journey of the soul for enlightenment or wholeness or integration, one of the stages in the hero's journey is atonement with the Father. And I've been talking about this without really any intention, but it's just been coming up as I bring up things in the house to talk about. Because yesterday, remember, we talked about the dragon lighter that my father had, he got in China. He was on the Yangtze River in China before World War II for 3 years. He graduated from Annapolis in 29, and he didn't go to a big ship like other graduates. They sent him to a riverboat in China. And the Sand Pebbles, if you ever saw that movie, was written about the boats. There were only 2 of them there, the Panay and his boat, which I can't pronounce. But they were the 2 riverboats there, and he was on one of them. And the novel and the movie with Steve McQueen was about the Sand Pebbles. And that's where he got this lighter, you see, which is a dragon, right, on both sides, a little silver lighter. And so yesterday we were talking about lighting the fire of the Kundalini, lighting the fire of life and learning how to ride it by being thrown off of it. So when you get fired, you get divorced, and you crash, and your life is torn apart, and everything goes to hell, you're just getting thrown off Kundalini, that's all. It's the dragon. In India, it's the giant cobra. In Asia, it's the dragon. It's the same force, you see, the same dragon force. In all the mythologies, the knight has to ride the dragon. Most of our mythological fantasy movies are about dragons, and some kid or somebody rides the dragon, or you kill the dragon. It's either the same thing, but it's a mythological encounter with Kundalini. which is your own life force. So I wanted to talk today about another artifact my father left me. When he graduated from Annapolis as an officer, as a graduate from the academy, whether you're Army or Navy, but you're a military officer, you get a sword, you see. And this one has, I can show it, but it has, this will be backwards, but it's got Edwin G. Connolly on it. And since I'm a junior, that's my name. Well, anyway, the only story he told me about this was that when he, after he was out of Annapolis, he had to march in the inauguration of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and it was so cold. And they were marching, and his hands were so cold. And when he pulled the sword out to go like that, his hands were so cold, he almost threw it at the president. But apparently he stopped himself and didn't stab the president. But the point, this is a physical sword, and you'll notice the gold, this is gold wrappings on it, Well, the officer of the military, particularly naval officers, historically, the military officer is the direct descendant of the sun god. That's why gold drips off his hat, off his shoulders, buttons, sword hilt, the gold falls. So everywhere gold falls, you see. He is the son of God. He is the son of the sun. Mythology is full of this, where and the sons want that sword. They want that Ferrari. They want that power. They want to drive that car. They want to get the business. They want to get the power of the father, and the father withholds it because the kid may not be ready to drive the car yet. The kid may not be able to handle the sword. The kid may not be able to ride the Kundalini yet. So the father is going to be the judge of when he's ready, you see. With me, I was never ready. It was always, you can't lift the hammer. You can't lift the sword. So there's, for the son, this is a direct refusal of acceptance of his uniqueness and individuality. You're not ready yet, you see. You've got more cooking to do, And the son, well, I'm ready, So there's this conflict between, and Prometheus is a myth of the son who couldn't wait, so he stole the fire from God, you see. Rather than waiting for God to give it to him, he stole it. These are two ways the sons operate. Either the father withholds it and he steals it, or the father gives him the sword when he's ready, you see. So there's great mythology and wisdom in these stories, but the sword is a physical sword, and usually the aristocracy, the peasants don't carry swords, you see, but the officers do. And this is the symbol of, in mythology, and we're looking about the different levels of these instruments here, these mythic metaphors, these symbols. And the sword is a symbol or a metaphor for the sword of discernment, which gives you the ability, it gives the soul the ability to tell the difference between what's real and what's not. So you cannot progress on your journey unless you can tell the difference between what's real and what's not. And we're in that kind of a conflict right now in what's truth. We have two versions of, is this the truth, or is there an alternative truth? Well, we need a sort of discernment in order to tell the truth, to cut the unreal away from the real. That's what the sword of discernment does. And we've kind of lost that today. We've lost that sort of discernment. And journalism is the only thing in the physical world, in our culture, that has this sort of discernment and can tell the difference between fantasy or story and facts and truth, you see. So this attempt to make journalism fake, you see, is an attempt to dull the sort of discernment so the people can't tell the difference between what's real and what isn't. But you can see how this goes in that direction. But getting back to this father and son relationship, which I've spent my whole life struggling in, because my happy fault was that my father never gave me the sword. He died, and I don't know where it was. I thought after he died, I thought I would get it, but I never could find. So my mother was in charge of the sword. And so when she died, my sister and I were going through the house, and I said, well, where in the hell is that sword? And we could not find it. I knew there was a sword here somewhere. And so we opened up a trunk, and it was full of quilts, and we pulled the quilts apart, and there, in the bottom of the trunk, beneath the quilts, was the sword. But still, you see, I wasn't ready for the sword. I still had discoveries to make. Well, maybe I did have the sword, but I didn't know it. Maybe I had the sword all along. Maybe I didn't. But we really do have this sword all the time. It's our birthright. I mean, as human beings, we're born with this sword. The ability to tell the difference between the unreal and the real, you see. But the process is discovering that we do have it, you see. Because if we don't think we have it, well, then we have to depend upon someone else to tell us what the truth, upon their sword. I talked about this the other day with the Oscars. And there was Warren Beatty, and he had the card there, and the unquestioned assumption was that when you get the card at the Oscars, it's the truth. I mean, they protect that thing. It's in a lockbox. It can't be a phony card. It can't be unreal. It can't be false. That's just the assumption that you go with. And so when he saw the Emma Stone on there, his sort of discernment kind of like said, wait a minute, something's, this is not right. But he didn't trust the sword. So he was equivalating between, oh, it should be right, but it isn't right. It should be, oh, well. You couldn't decide. So Faye Dunaway says, oh, Warren, you can't decide, give me that. And he happily gave it to her, you see. Oh, I'm so relieved. She had the sword. So she said, yes, La La Land, you see. Wrong. But if Warren had trusted his sword of discernment, he would have said immediately, something's wrong with this card. You see. So trusting the sword is a learning process. You have to learn how to sword fight. You can't just pick it up and start using it. You got to use it, and you got to get cut a lot. You got to learn how to use this sword. So it's the Excalibur. It's the light sword in the Star Wars. You see, the light sword. Isn't that interesting? It's the sword of light. So this is the sword. This is God's sword. This is God's sword of light and awareness that tells the difference between dream and waking, unreality and reality. And we all have it. And we're all sons of God, and the gold drips down on our hat and on our shoulders and on the brim and on the handle of our sword, you see. We're all sons of God. There's only one son, but we're all that son. We're the son with many faces, men and women. All the sources of the Son of God with many faces, and each one of us is working out our quest. Each one of us is working out our journey to learn how to use this sword, you see. But we already have it. It's not like I got to steal it. It's not like I got to wait till the old man dies before I can get it, you see. It's not like that I have to use somebody else's sword. It's given, you see. It's given. And yet our culture doesn't want us to believe that we have this sword. Because if we had this sword, most of the culture would not work like it does. Advertising depends that you don't have this sword, you see. If you had a sword like this, you would look at the ad and you would know whether you needed that thing or not, you see. But the ad says, oh, you will be complete. You'll have the sword. You'll be a son of God if you buy this product. Well, I know I'm incomplete, so I'm going to buy it because then I'll feel like the son of God. Meaning I'll be complete then. But you aren't, so you buy the next thing, you see. So the sword tells the difference between that. The sword tells you that you're already complete. You're already dripping with gold. You already struck it rich. You already found the gold mine, you see. But we think it's fool's gold because we're conditioned that way. So think about that, and let that be your martini for the day. And may you find your sword of discernment hanging from your side, and you'll notice the gold dripping from your shoulders and from the brim of your hat and from the buttons on your coat. And you'll know that you are the direct emissary of the sun god on earth. And that's your birthright. So I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow morning at Buddha's in your landfill.